Hey, how you doing? Justin here. Today we are going to check out how to use Triad chips. You should have already done the lesson on Triad arpeggios where we learned the shapes for the triads on the thinnest 3 strings and worked out how to find that root note. I might touch on it a little bit, but I would strongly recommend you've checked out that lesson before you get stuck into this one. Now, I've chosen to do it on a blues for the little demo thing. The second rhythmic style of the chips for me felt a little bit like a square peg round hole, but playing on 2 and 4 is an important part, so I kind of wedged that one in there. It's useful for blues, it's used in loads of pop, it's used in soul. Yeah, it's just a really common kind of a second guitar part to use these very short, small, we call them chips because they're like little slices. The chords should be very tight, with not usually sustained. There are ways of combining sustained chords with the chips, which we'll talk about a little bit later in this lesson. But to start off with, let's have a look at the chips and how we get them nice and tight, short and not sustaining. So let's start off here with an A major triad. Hopefully you remember that we're on the 5th fret because there's the root note A. First finger covers the thinnest 2 strings. Second finger is down 1 fret higher than the first finger on the 3rd string. That's an A major triad. Now the thing with the triads, as I said, we want to try and keep them nice and tight, like very short, staccato. So what we want to do is when we're playing the chord, we press the chord down with our fingers and we relax it immediately afterwards. So just try playing it. Relax the fingers, but don't let them off. Okay, don't let them off the strings. Don't lift them like that, because then you're going to get an open string ringing out. So just press and then relax. Now, one of the things that I noticed in this lesson, I probably do it all the time and just hadn't noticed, is my 3rd and 4th fingers hang around here, touching the thicker strings. They lift up a little bit when I press the chord down and immediately go down. So as my 1st and 2nd fingers relax, the 3rd and 4th fingers go down to mute all the strings. It's actually pretty effective. The combination of lifting the fingers up with the 3rd and 4th strings going down does do the mute pretty good, but I would still recommend using this outside part of your hand here to rest on the strings as well. So you've got the fingers pressed down. As soon as they relax, 3rd and 4th fingers go down, and your hand kind of swivels down to mute with the outside part of your palm on all of the strings there. It's really important that you use the strumming hand as well as the fretting hand to do the mute. So you can start with either down or up, it doesn't matter. I'm going to start with the up. So we do the up pick, and then immediately afterwards we relax the fingers, palm goes down. So try and get used to, first of all, just a little up pick, and then the up pick hand goes down and on, and at the same time as that mute's happening, fingers are relaxing and fingers are going down. There's quite a few little elements to this. I tend to think that the left hand seems to take care of itself to lift up the fingers a little bit, but I have to concentrate a little bit more on getting that finger to bounce on. I mean, I don't have to think about it much anymore, but there was a time where I was having to stay aware of that, as you probably will when you learn it. All of these things, you slow, careful practice, making sure you get it right, and then doing lots of repetition. Eventually, you don't have to think about that stuff anymore, okay? So just starting with that A chord to upstroke, real tight. Trying to get the chord as short as you could possibly get it. Then try it with a down. When you're confident with the upstroke, just try it down. Now, the down pick obviously wants to just go from the 3rd string. Don't try not to hit those thicker strings, or you'll end up getting some of that. So down, and just as it picks, the fingers press down, and then hand comes on, fingers come down on the fretting hand. Bit of practice of that's going to be really helpful before you even start thinking about trying to do a specific rhythm pattern. Just try and focus first of all on getting the sound, the technique correct. Down picks, up picks. Down picks, up picks. Just really work on it. I must say with the up pick, I tend to feel like I'm picking away from the guitar a bit. It's not up like this. It's up and kind of away from the guitar. It's a little bit more rotating. Same with the down pick. It's a little bit more flicky, okay, than it would be this big kind of arm motion. It's very much kind of wrist twisting rather than whole forearm moving like you might with regular strumming. So once you feel confident with the mechanics, with the technique, and you can do those chips and keep them nice and tight, nice and staccato, you want to try putting them in a pattern. Now, the rhythm patterns that I used in the intro there, the second one was playing on beats 2 and 4, which for me isn't one that works really great in a blues. It's not my first choice in a blues situation. I wanted to put it in there as a demo because playing on 2 and 4 is really common in lots of other styles, particularly like soul and things like that. So, and it's a better maybe starting point than the one I started off with, which is a little bit more complicated, which we'll get to in just a sec. But start off with 2 and 4 are going to be using down picks. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Worth just doing the one chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. Count along. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I use that chord progression that we had when we were doing the triad arpeggios of G, C, G, D, really good starting point. So just G, 2, 3, 4. You have 1, 2, 3, 4. C, 2, 3, 4. Back to G, 3, back to D. 2, 3, 4. 1, 3, 1, 1, 3, 1, 3. Really, really good practice. Just doing it. Find some songs that feels good in and do it. What you're probably going to find is that now that I've told you about triads, you're going to hear them a lot more often. You'll be just listening to a track and go, oh, that's somebody's using triads in that song. Have a go at doing that particular song. But you can try in almost anything, particularly like the mid-tempo things where you got 1, 2, 3, 4, that kind of tempo. The little chips on 2 and 4 generally work really well. For me, it doesn't work as well on a shuffle. So chink, ka-chink, 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 like a blues there. The 2 and 4 thing, it's kind of okay in some circumstances, but for me, it's just maybe not the first choice. There are other patterns that I feel kind of weave in together a little bit better. But 2 and 4, very, very common, definitely worth some practice. Works with major and minor as well. So don't feel like you're just using this 1, 4, 5 major thing. You can definitely use minor chords as well. Of course, I'm hoping by this point you're already familiar with the major and the minor shapes and where to find them on the where to find those root notes on the thicker string and therefore the first string, and therefore you can move your triad shapes around to any chord that you might find. A common variation on playing on the backbeat, the 2 and the 4, is to play on beat 2 and the and after 3. So that one's just a little bit early, and the and would usually take an up pick. So we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Down, up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's take it through that same thing, G to C, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, D, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice that my strumming hand does move a little bit like I'm strumming, because for me that's really important for the feel thing. It is okay to just have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And not have so much movement. That would be okay, but for me, just keeping the hand moving all the time helps me lock into the groove, and if that works for you, then I'd encourage you to do the same. The pattern I used for the first round in the intro is one of my favorite patterns for a blues. It's not actually emulating the backbeat, but it kind of weaves in real nice with it, I think. It's playing on the and after 1 and beat 3, and then 1 and the and after 2, and alternating between them. So you end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Up, down, down, up, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. But obviously it's a 2-bar sequence. That pattern, that rhythmic pattern, works in many other songs as well. It's not just a blues thing, so it's something that you might want to experiment with and trying on other tunes. You might just use one of them, so you could play on the 1 and the and after 2, go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. That pattern works on its own, as does playing on the and after 1 and 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4. So both of those bars work individually, or they work really nicely in that 2-bar sequence. It's up for you to have a little bit of an experiment. Do remember, if you're doing a 2-bar sequence, that you're going to have to sometimes change chords midway through the sequence at the end of the 12-bar blues cycle, depending on if you're playing a quick change blues or a slow change blues. The changes obviously happen at different times, but if we apply that to that 12-bar blues in A, like I did at the start, we'd start with the A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Second time through. And up to D. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Back to A. 3. Then E. 1, 2, 3, 4. D. 3, 4. A. E. Also, that very last one you can sustain and do a little drag back if you want. We're starting to get a bit fancy now, but 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 4. A bit more rock and roll. You can, of course, experiment with this stuff, and I would encourage you to do that as much as you can. Keep your ear out, listening for examples in the real world to copy, but also just experiment. Try playing some songs and trying to get the chips down. Like I said, 2 and 4 work very, very common. For me, not so well in the blues, but there are instances where that will work great. It's up to you now to try and explore a little bit. On the website, I'm going to put links to a load of different real-world examples. It's one of those ones where I was trying to think of some as I went along through the lesson, but trying to actually remember exactly what songs actually have chips and what ones I kind of maybe played them with chips, but it was just a cover band and they weren't actually the right thing. So easier for me to go and double check that, and I'll put some links over on the website for this lesson. There'll be a link in the description if you happen to be over on YouTube. If you are on YouTube, you might as well hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate the support while you're there. But there are lots more support notes over on the website, so do check that out. And this duet series is expanding quite well now. We've got quite a few different things to check out. So if you're in a 2-guitar situation, you get to jam with people regularly, do go and check out the rest of this series. There's lots of interesting stuff on there. As I mentioned with the arpeggiated triads lesson, the key thing here is putting them into practice. That's what you need to do now. Don't just learn them, do it a lot, as much as you can, preferably in kind of real life circumstances. So either jamming with your jam buddy, find a song that feels good and experiment with different patterns, different chord progressions. Make sure you get real familiar with those different root notes so you can find the chords really quickly. If you haven't checked it out already, do go and check out the JustinGuitar Lessons and Songs app. Tons of guitar karaoke for you there. Has the chords come up on the screen as you go along, so it simplifies having to memorize the chord progressions or look somewhere else. Scans along for you. Playing along with those backing tracks is super good. It's the next best thing to having a jam buddy because they're real songs. They don't stop. Force you to really work on your patterns there. Of course, particularly the songs in that app are generally got simple chord progressions because that's what you want to start off with. You want to start with simple stuff and get real good at it before you start trying to do advanced things. So using the beginner songs is a real good idea. Go and choose some of those early grade 1 songs, you know, where the chords are real simple. There's only A, D, and E to start off with, you know, or some of the ones that are just G, C, and D. Have a go at doing those before you start trying to get too fancy pants on this stuff. Yeah, really hope you enjoy it. I'm sure you'll have a lot of fun, especially if you've got a jam buddy to explore this stuff with. So I don't know what's going on lately, but Ziggy seems to be able to know when I'm just doing the ending patter for my video, and I'm just going like, you know, make sure you subscribe and all of that sort of stuff. And she's like, you know, you can't just, you know, do an outro of the video if I'm not in it. What's going on? Eh? Really? Is it? You're a bit tired today, eh? Well, we're going to go for a walk in a minute when I finish doing my filming. Anyway, so from me and Ziggy, goodbye. Hope you enjoyed the lesson. Have yourselves a great day. And I'll see you for plenty more very soon. Bye-bye.